I'm Brian Stanton, host of Teaching While Queer, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Hitech Podcast, where I put my game face on. That's what I'm doing right now. If you can't tell, if you're listening to only the audio and you have no idea what is happening, my name is Josh Swartz. I am one of the hosts of the Hitech Podcast, and I just have my hands next to my face that entire time, and you have no idea. That's crazy. That's because it's video. You should check out the video sometime. It's a fun time. I am also joined by the other little voice you're hearing. Not a little, but you're just kind of whispering in the minutes of my talking.
Buddy.
It's Will. Will is the other co-host. Hey, Will, what's up, buddy?
What's up, my friend? I am doing great. I got a tattoo today.
Yeah, you did.
And it kicked my butt. I was not expecting it to impact me as much as possible. So I'm not going to be out of it, but I'm feeling it. I'm like, whoo.
It was a tough tattoo because it was a tattoo of my face on his leg. So there's a lot of detail. That beard is just hard to tattoo accurately.
Gosh, could you imagine? I did mess with one of the other artists so my guy's sitting there, he's bent over my leg doing it, and one of the other artists in the place comes up to look at it. I was like, I wanted to turn around and be like, yeah, how's the picture of my grandma doing? Because that's not what it is. And just see what he would do if he'd freak out. Like, dude, what are you doing? No, but
we're thinking I'm the coolest grandmother ever. For context, listeners, his tattoo is, where's the picture? You sent it to me on Discord somewhere. Yeah, there it is. It's like a martial arts kind of Asian look, it's like a warrior of some sort, right?
Yeah.
Is that the context? Right?
It's like a samurai, yeah.
Like a samurai, right? So if that was your grandmother, that would be the coolest grandmother ever. That's undoubted. So maybe they would just think it's super cool.
Shogun grandma, But
yeah, exactly. I ironically got a tattoo today as well of my grandmother.
Wow.
On my neck. Yeah. No, I'm just joking. That's not true.
Does your grandmother's face have a teardrop on it? No.
Yeah, it's there's a teardrop for every day I've been with my grandmother. That's I don't know.
So that's where I am. We're having a great day. We're having a great time.
Excited this week on the Hitech Podcast, though, we are not talking about tattoos, although that would be a fun episode someday. We are interviewing Harrison from the company Linewize. They provide some security for students. They're focused on digital citizenship. Say that 5 times fast as you're talking through that. And well-being for students, mental health and well-being as well. They've kind of got the whole gambit going on. And so this week we talk with Harrison about what Linewize is doing, but also we get into some interesting conversations just generally about what in technology creates mental health issues, what they're looking for, how they do interventions. This is definitely an episode that's focused a little bit more on K-12 because that's where Linewize comes from. But if you're listening in your higher ed as well, I think there's a lot of benefit in this episode to just talking about student mental health and issues that come up. All the stuff that Harrison's going to talk about, from cyberbullying to internet issues to content they shouldn't see, are still real issues in higher ed today as well. It's not like they become 18 and they stop being jerks to each other on the internet. If that was the case, man, politics season would be so much easier. But that is not the case. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we need an adult Linewize too that just limits what you're allowed to do on the internet.
From 18 to 21, this is your limit.
Although, now that I'm saying that's kind of sounding a little, Big Brother-ish, and that's what we don't like. So I take that back. Anyway, it's whatever. Linewize, though, it's a little bit easier of a conversation. But there's a lot we talk about here. So it's a broad topic, I think, interesting. No matter where you're at in the space of education as a teacher, I think this will be a helpful topic for you. So with that said, there's enough talking that we've done. We've went down too many rabbit trails already. Let's hear from Harrison at Linewize.
All right, folks, another interview, another episode of the Hitech Podcast. We're excited to be here with Harrison Parker. Thank you for joining us, Harrison. He is the Executive Vice President of Linewize. We're going to learn a little bit about what Linewize is, what we're doing in just a little bit. But before we jump into that, Harrison, give us a little bit about you. How did you get into the space of education? How did you land at Linewize? What's the background?
Sure. And William and Josh, thanks so much for having me on today.
Absolutely.
It's a little bit of an interesting start into education and education technology in particular for me. I think like many of us, when we finish up school or college, kind of looking for that next thing. There's some people out there that have their whole life planned. That was certainly not how I was. As soon as I finished up, was looking for opportunities. I was actually really into languages. I was using a software program to help further. In this case, it was French for me. I just finished up Spanish at school and was looking for another language and interested in French. So I used a software program that many of you are probably familiar with. It's Rosetta Stone.
Yes.
I was looking for a job and I thought, well, I like the software. Let's see what they have going on. They're a growing company, and joined with them and entered into their K-12 education division, where we were working with school systems to implement language programs. And just under 15 years later, I'm still in education technology and I'm stuck with it. I really enjoyed it right off the bat. It was a fun experience working with school systems. I got to spend a lot of time in the classroom, actually implementing the software, seeing it live, which I think I was only about 6 months in to the role when I was able to go on site.
Sending you right out. Go get in there.
Right into it. But got to work with teachers that were using the software, and it was really neat to see kids' faces light up when they were saying, in this case, they were saying, what were world languages to them, and looking, pointing to their peers, saying, "Hey, look, I'm speaking a different language." So it was really neat to see the impact that made. And then I had the opportunity to work with a startup and get into classroom management space and really make sure that students were focused on using the software that a teacher was trying to implement and not getting distracted with a YouTube video or something.
Whatever you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that never happens.
And I saw, you see it left and right. You had the diligent students, and I was probably on the opposite end of that in school. And so, our software today that I was using at the company called NetRef, and now have since been acquired into Linewize by Korea, where I am today, and still does a lot of that similar technology. That is the end goal: keeping students on task and safe. And so that's a little bit of a background, but certainly not what I would have expected when I was younger. We wanted to be everything but probably where you end up, but then you get there and you realize it's amazing. So that's kind of my path so far.
I don't remember ever wanting to be a fireman or police officer. Those are very stereotypical ones. But very early on, I did want to be an English language teacher, and that was my bachelor's degree. And I was hoping to travel the world doing that. Here I am. I've never done it. I did it in internships, community support, right? But I landed in instructional design, instructional technology. I've been more in that space the whole time. So you never know where you're going to go.
I don't know what the two of you are talking about. I planned out my entire life. I wanted to be a drummer in a rock band, and the natural, immediate thing that leads to is instructional technologist in education. I mean, those two things go directly together. So I've been on a straight path the whole time.
You nailed it.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. It's
about as straight as mine was going and getting here today. It sounds like, Josh. So
yeah, exactly. Kind of.
All right. Well, pitch us a little bit about what Linewize is. We've been on the website a little bit. I personally haven't used it. I'm familiar with software that's similar to it, but what is Linewize? How did it get started? What's the problem it's looking to solve?
Sure. So we are a student safety platform. We provide a number of different solutions, but in whole, our mission really is to protect students in their digital lives, not just at school, but at home and everywhere in between. So all of our focus goes into those types of products and solutions. We are now about 10 years old. We were founded by 4 individuals that were parents, and they were in the technology and communication space. And were passionate about ensuring that their own children really were safe when they were interacting with the web. A lot of the stuff at that time when they launched it, this is when cell phones started becoming more powerful, right? You could take pictures as well as you could on a digital camera 25 years ago. Social media really started popping up. You could browse the internet just like
not only take the pictures,
just like we could, right? On a computer before. Now it's just as fast, and so you were exposed to more. They were seeing that with their own kids, and they saw the concern and the rise that sadly, where we are today with just overuse of technology in some regard, too much screen time, and some of the risks that poses from a mental health perspective. When we look at suicide rates among youth or depression, things like that, they're drastically on the rise, particularly over the last 10 years and since the pandemic. So a lot of our tools are around that, just keeping students safe and on task in school.
I love that.
That's really good. That's a good mission to it. It's interesting. I mean, this topic always comes up when we're talking about technology in the classroom and educational technology. There's this side of it where there's really interesting technology we like implementing with students. There's also the side of there's a lot to point to of how technology impacts mental health in students. And looking at that, I'm curious from your perspective and even Linewize perspective, Harrison, and I want to dig a little bit more into what Linewize does to help in this area, but a question popped into my head. So we warned you, we might go off script. So we're going off script.
No worries.
I'm curious from your guys' perspective, like with technology and mental health, what I think we talk a lot about technology and mental health, and we kind of throw out statements of like, technology influencing mental health with students and screen time and things like that. From your guys' perspective, what are some of the biggest things with technology usage you're seeing that impact students' mental health in a negative way? Whether it's in the classroom or whatever that looks like. Like when you're thinking of this, what is it from your guys' perspective that's has the most negative impact on students? Things maybe you're trying to target when you're looking at student mental health connected to technology.
Sure. And I think there are two particular things, two different tracks, right? You look at one track is academically, just from the distractions. We talked about that kind of when we opened up, and some of the experiences I was seeing when I was early on in the classrooms and seeing students that were supposed to be using, my former company's software, was now they were doing everything but that, right? And not the whole class, but a few students. Right. Yeah. And so, some of our tools are geared toward that, right? Locking students into those particular resources to make sure that they're getting the most out of that software and actually achieving academic gains. So, when they're off on YouTube or another site and not focused on the task at hand, well, there's obviously a learning slide there. And so that's the impact that's too much screen time, or let's say too much of, it's not necessarily a bad thing they're on. It just may not be the right thing at that time can have. And then the other impact, obviously, I alluded to is the more, I would say serious stuff, particularly from a well-being perspective, that students feel, if they're isolated. Cyberbullying is something we didn't talk about yet, but how it's just so much easier, unfortunately, for anonymity sites and things like that, where students can sort of hide behind the technology and potentially poke fun of their classmates, where that's the rise that we're seeing. And sadly, some of the measurements that we're tracking are showing a big rise in that, like I mentioned, in depression rates and things like that. So kind of different tracks there where I think the overuse of technology can lead.
Somebody just today was talking to me around me about like all the apps that are out there now to like fake phone numbers to like to be able to text somebody. So if your number gets out in a social group and people start to cyberbully you, like you can't block one number, but they literally will just go make all these apps and make all these fake numbers to keep texting you, and you can't stop them. It's almost like you have to change your phone number to get away from it. It's a crazy thing that was not even a problem. I'm not too old. Was not even a problem when I was in school. Kids did not have those tools to attack each other, frankly.
Well, we're in an election year, and how many robocalls have you all gotten?
Yeah.
We're not even at November yet. Not even
my
close.
phone is getting pretty good at spam text. It's like, nope,
Yeah.
goes right into my spam. I'm like, yes.
Well,
Oh, that's nice. Mine's just like blowing up with people trying to advertise things, or yeah, exactly, like political texts, or my UPS package that I didn't order the other day is delayed. Those are my favorite. Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing I didn't touch on, deep fakes. I think most people are familiar with what happened to Taylor Swift. I don't know when that was, a month ago or so, and we're seeing that with middle schoolers or high schoolers, where in this case it was some of the boys were in one particular district was creating deep fakes of their classmates of girls, and those are the things that are on the rise now. Again, there's a million good uses of technology, right? So I know we started off negative on some of the overuse of that, but it's just using it, as with anything, right? It's using it in moderation and in an appropriate way. And that's what we're trying to facilitate, is just the best use of technology and curb some of those distractions or harmful events.
Yeah, and I mean, we were talking a little bit in the pre-recording space, but I think that one of the things we deal with in our work, Josh and my work, is helping faculty even become aware of that, helping teachers become aware of that, because whether it's accessibility, just tool accessibility, ADA compliance, that kind of thing, or if it's safety, what's a privacy concern, security, a lot of teachers see that the tool can help them do a teaching thing, and they don't know to ask the question or don't know to look for the privacy concern. That there's, freemium is a great thing. Freemium means that more teachers can use more tools, but those terms of service may put students at risk. And that's the issue with those kinds of things. And that's part of our mission, is to continue putting out good information, help faculty, help instructors, help teachers look at all these tools that are out there and help them kind of decide which ones are worth using or safe to use, etc. But it sounds like Linewize not only has tools to address some of these things, potentially interventions, let you speak to that in a bit, but it's helping to keep these students from getting to the other stuff in the first place. It's like lockdown browsers, helping on the devices they're on, that kind of thing.
Yes. So we've actually split it up into 3 different buckets. We call it our well-being framework, but in order to explain to some of our school districts, some of our partners, what we're offering and what they end up using, we kind of break it out into 3 buckets. And it works similar to, if you look at healthcare categories, things like that. So one of our categories that we throw that into in our well-being framework is the prevention and enablement space. So when you think about the prevention space, we have a product that is our content filter. So that's where we are blocking out every K-12 school system in the country is required, in order to receive some type of federal funding, is required to block pornography, explicit content, just things that are inappropriate in the school environment. And so we provide that content filter for them, as well as we integrate that content filter with a classroom management solution. That's really the next level on top of our filter. That's really neat how the 2 tie in. Is if you're a teacher and you're sitting in the classroom, we actually provide them the ability to see all the devices that, if you're in a classroom of 30 students, you can see what everyone's working on. And then more importantly, you can say, hey, we're going to lock you down into these 5 websites, maybe a math program along with the testing site, and just ensure you stay on task, and, not only getting to distracting content, but potentially harmful content as well.
Right.
And so that's one side of the house. The second side is our early detection and intervention. This is where we've got a couple different products that really focus on the well-being space. It's one of the ones that I think if you poll our employees, we're super proud of, and some of the fantastic stories come out of that. We've got a tool that looks for certain keywords that pop up that could spot a student at risk, be it from self-harm or cyberbullying. It doesn't take too long for me to get feedback funneled up from our team that says, hey, a district just reached out and said, we really intervened and helped this student, or prevented X from occurring. And that is really motivating. And that's that space that we're in there. We also provide a 60, it takes about 60 seconds. We say a 60-second weekly check-in for students just to let us know, hey, how are they doing? We got feedback from one district that said, a student came up to me and just said, it's really nice to know that you actually care about how we're doing. So those two products are in that, we call it early detection, but making sure that we intervene and we jump in before something bad happens. And then the last component that kind of completes that circle, when you think about it, and any of these things can happen in any order, but it's around education. So we call it education and engagement. But obviously we're trying to prevent them at the very beginning to getting these sites. It's going to happen, right? Something, no matter what you do in life, they're going to be.
Kids are smarter than us.
Yeah. And so when they do get exposed to that content, or there's an issue that pops up, how do we intervene? Like I talked about in those former two products. And then lastly, how do we educate and continue to help them understand how you don't get stuck in that position again? And the really neat thing in that kind of space that we have is we do have a parental control app. So while we're focused heavily in, 99% of our solutions are for K-12 schools. That's our focus. We do know that beyond the technology directors and teachers and curriculum team, it also, of course, involves parents. We need to keep them engaged in what's going on with their children and their digital lives. And that's where that tool actually hooks in with some of our content filtering solution and our classroom management solution, and provides parent insight into what's going on with the devices. How are they spending their time? Are there anything like, hey, they're spending 4 hours on Instagram or YouTube, right? We may want to rein that in a little bit. So that's kind of that completion of what we focus on. And again, it's just ensuring that while they're using their device, every interaction that they're safe.
Yeah.
So
that's really
sorry, I went on a little bit there, but hopefully
no, you're good.
A good picture of what we're doing. Hopefully you can tell we're very passionate about it, and we've got a great team here in the US. A lot of us are former educators or teachers, technology directors, network admins. So some of the very problems that we run into, or if something pops up in our system, we can jump right on the phone and say, hey, we know why you're frustrated with X. Let's help you solve it, so that you can support your staff, because we were in your shoes, a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I like that. It sounds like you've got kind of like forgive me, I remember the 3 bucket concept you said before. You said something before that, but it's an approach where you're hitting a couple different spots, both content, both what they can access, but even the parent aspect, acknowledging that this all doesn't just happen in schools, right? So much access is outside of schools, or whatever that may look like. I mean, we joked about that when AI first popped up, and some schools ban it in their school. We kind of laugh, going, they leave your school at a certain point. They I like kind of the holistic approach into it. And I'm curious, from the students or the parent side, is that something they can just get access to if the school has Linewize, or is that something that's kind of just separately offered to parents? I'm just curious, how's that connected?
You're exactly right, Josh. So any of our partner schools that have our filtering or classroom management solution, it's the same. They can tie into our system and then download our parent app. And the neat thing is, actually enable parents to manage, if the school district chooses to, parents can manage that Chromebook or Windows machine, iPad, Mac, whatever it is. When that device goes home, they would be able to manage it. So that's something that we're digging into heavily. Right now, we've got it working on Chromebooks and Windows, which majority of our districts out there are using those two types of platforms, but they can actually manage that school issued device. So a technology director can say, hey, I'm going to set up this policy. And then parents can choose if they want to be more, a little bit more granular, or potentially allow a little bit more access at home. So, and particularly think about it. Dinner time, bedtime. It's just another distraction sometimes, where a student could be up at 1 a.m. and parents are saying, great, thanks for giving my kid, this Chromebook, where they're up all night playing games. And so that's kind of empowering parents to be a little bit more involved. And then they can also add it to their child's cell phone or tablet if they have that. So really, you can log in, and in one place, you can manage your kid's school issued device or a device you may have purchased them, and keep them on task and keep them engaged at dinner, right? So they're actually focused on the conversation.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Very cool. With that in mind, I'm curious from you, like jumping back over to a little bit. We talked a little bit of the technology and pieces from there. I'm curious, on your guys' end, what are you seeing the most in schools that's driving need for intervention? Like, so I would imagine being involved in this space, you're seeing some reoccurring things that are popping up more often than others, probably, that are causing need for intervention or help. I'm curious, what are you guys seeing from your perspective? What teachers should be looking out for as they're dealing in the classroom?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing from some of the stats and data, cyberbullying, I pointed to it. It's no surprise. It's easier, right? It's that old saying, you wouldn't say that, say what you're going to say to someone in person as opposed to another person or behind their back. Well, now it's really behind their back. It's on a platform in the cloud. Right?
Yeah.
There's a huge sad trend in that direction. Certainly that we're seeing. Beyond that, the self-harm too. And obviously we have to be hyper alert in situations like that and make sure that we're keeping eyes out for the signs there for those students. But those are the two things that there's more that tool looks for, such as oversharing, younger students that may not, someone reaches out and they say, "Where do you live?" And it's like, "Oh, this is great." And you're proud at 7, 8 years old. I know my address.
I know it.
And, and the kid doesn't know that there's potentially something nefarious on the other end. And so those are things that we flag as well. A lot of really neat things that product, it's called Monitor, but a lot of really neat things that solution offers.
Okay. Now, at the same time, we're seeing these things on the rise. Linewize, is, like you saying, it's this full cycle approach. Like, we're monitoring, we're trying to prevent, but we're also alerting if we see those at-risk behaviors, things like that. How do the instructors get involved? At what point are they using Linewize? Are they just getting kind of email notifications, "Hey, Timmy has to step out today," or are they kind of getting dashboards and access to be able to monitor themselves actively?
All of the above that you mentioned there. So, when you talk about instructional, in the classroom, teachers, educators, that's where we have really our classroom management solution, where you can see what's going on the device. You can get access to reports and ensure they're staying on task in your classroom. For the technologists, for the IT directors, CTOs, those district level folks, that's where a lot of them are heavily involved in our filtering solution and monitor solution, where they can set policies, and then they can also get emails or flags, as we call them, events to potential risks that they need to investigate for students. A lot of districts now are creating, they have departments for child services or safety, and that's where a lot of these email alerts are going to. We actually take it a step further, and we have human moderators that review these events for districts. And so if we see that we have different thresholds depending on the category or the type of event that it is, warrants it. For us, our highest level is a level 5, and let's say it's in the self-harm space and we detect something, we'll make a phone call. So when we work with our partner districts, they put in their information about, let's say it goes to the head of student safety in the school district. There'll be a number there that we can reach out to, and we'll call them and say, "Hey, you need to take a look at this alert, immediately."
Okay, so your team's also, you have humans on that task. It's not just like a machine learning thing is seeing words and throwing flags. Like, no, I'm at Linewize. I'm looking at this. This is sincere. We should call someone real and get them on.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously, we leverage that technology.
Sure. Yeah, both.
In terms of making sure that we can flag that particular content or those events. But, as with anything, you need to sift out the false positives and make sure that what the technology teams or those district teams end up with are actionable events. Their time is precious, and we need to make sure that we filter out the stuff to really get the important stuff to them quickly.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've seen tools that like just let you control the iPads in the room. I've seen tools that have all these different pieces of what you're doing. It sounds like Linewize you become a Linewize district. If you're getting involved, this district is taking on this suite of tools that's going to help in the classroom, outside of the classroom, at home, while the kids are walking in the hall. Like it's kind of full suite, full service.
Yeah, we refer to it as, a platform, our student safety platform. And that's a buzzword, right? For it's a platform, but we really do want to be, when, we refer to them as partner districts or our partners. We really want them digging in and being able to source different types of data from our solutions so that they can make better decisions about their students. They're more informed. Hey, here's a student that is off task. They can look in another system, see the attendance maybe isn't where it needs to. That's a student you need to investigate, figure out, is there anything wrong that we can support that student on better. So yes, that's definitely where we want to be for our partner districts, is make sure that it's a space that they can do a lot of different things to ultimately keep their students safe.
Kind of, this is pretty, I don't know if this is like a ridiculous question to ask, but like, so I was just talking like, all right, this is the teachers. What about the students? So like a student has those 60-second check-ins, like we're doing the stuff to them in a sense, but is there feedback loops that let them speak up and be like, that 60-second thing is invasive, or I don't like this? Or the kids, do they have a channel back through into the Linewize community to participate in this? Because I love to protect young people. I think anybody under the age 18 needs to be protected. There's lots of things we have in place for that, but I'm also a very anti-surveillance state. Personal opinion.
Sure.
So, but one of those things is like, all right, these kids are in a space that needs to be protected by adults who are not their parents. Like there's a lot of constraints and variables that I think that this is the right kind of thing to be doing. A way to assuage that or help make them a part of it is to give a feedback loop, to let the kids have some sort of impact. So I don't know, is that a Linewize approach? Is there a route for that?
There is, and I think that's really important, right? Particularly when you think about high schoolers, right? They're 16, 17, some of them 18, getting
almost,
they're adults, right? Or soon to be, right?
Yep.
So I think it's very important. A lot of districts will have acceptable use policies, right? Well, everyone pretty much has an acceptable use policy, but adding in language, we certainly encourage our partners to add in language about what the line other systems are doing is actually collecting, and what it is not. I think that's really important, is making sure the students know that, they're not collecting, and holding on to certain content that is personal. This is to be used for the outcomes of the product, which is to intervene in situations that are harmful, or just to not let you get to content that you shouldn't be getting to at school. Yeah. We also provide what we call courses in our classroom tool for students around, and I think that leads to a broader point around, you need to know what the internet is doing in general, right? Cookies, tracking, things like that. Why am I on Instagram and I searched for something the other day, and now I'm getting, we talked about fishing, right? I like fishing. Yep. So why am I getting all these ads served to me about new fishing lures or whatever it is? Well, there's a reason, right? And so when you're younger, you definitely need to understand that. So the courses we provide talk about that, digital citizenship courses, what happens on the internet from a technology perspective, and how you can protect yourself and your data. That's only going to be, more and more used as our systems get more intelligent for, think about social media, right? For advertising and things like that. Mm-hmm. So William, I 100% agree with you. And that's, kind of why we went down that path of creating the courses, to make sure that children are informed about what's going on. I think there's more that we can do as a society as this moves forward.
It makes them participants. That's one of those things that like, the philosophies I hold personally about that kind of stuff, like it's because someone is trying to remove autonomy or to force you into. It's like you want it sounds like the students are to have their autonomy, to have their agency. We're trying to control the dangerous spots around that. But otherwise, I like what you're saying there about digital citizenship and the instructional point to it, because just preventing them from the problem does not help them when they're 18 years old in one day out in the world. And they don't know why they shouldn't have done that stuff in the first place. And now they're hitting it for the first, which we kind of all know at this point is not true. If they've got the smartphone, unless the parents are using Linewize effectively. And even that, kids are so stinking smart to get around things, right? Like it's happening at 12, 13, 14 years old, where these students are seeing the pornographic material, the hateful material, the misinformation. One student gets on Reddit. That's it. They have access to everything. They have one site, everything. So I love that you're part of engaging them at that younger age to teach them, because that's a part of the process of protecting them.
Yeah, and there's a lot of neat things. We're not doing this, but think of other ed tech companies that are providing, say, financial literacy. So how do I open up a banking account? This is that same concept on the technology side. What do I need to know about the internet, how it works, and how to be careful?
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate that. And I love that. Again, it's this opportunity to protect, to educate, but the education is protection. We're having a very good marriage there. So I love that.
You have to bring students along. And once you educate them, particularly at the older level, right? When they're 9, 10, they may not understand, but when they get into high school, that sort of thing, understand what the technology is there for. I think vast majority of them, if you ask them, they're on board. Hey, potentially can help some of your students that are struggling. I think that goes a long way with them.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Very cool. Now, just for those listening, for the listeners listening, I'm trying to see how many times I can say listen in a sentence. That is fun. If somebody's interested in finding out more about Linewize, about accessing it, obviously this is more of a district tool, but interested in advocating for it or taking a look at it, what's the best place for a teacher to go to start to learn more and get more information?
Sure. The best place is simply our website. So it's linewize.com. It's exactly like it sounds, except for the Wise is with a Z. So
got it.
Yeah.
And I see you guys threw it up there. So that's perfect. So
yeah,
it's on screen currently.
Spelling it, because who knows? Maybe
Awesome. And when they think about that, I mean, you can get them in. That's one of the things we kind of work through with different kind of ed tech tools, right? If it's a freemium, a lot of teachers can go sign up, get started today kind of thing. This is a district approach. It's not something you could just apply one at a time. So those teachers do need to get their district administrators, their technologists, their IT folks involved in this kind of decision making. That's my assumption.
Correct. You do. I did talk about our parental app that we have as well. Now that's something that you can go out if you're listening and you're a parent and it's something you want to explore. You can certainly use that without the district using one of our products. That's where you would use the application on your child's cell phone or tablet, for example, to kind of rein in some of that screen time.
Am I correct? Is this the Custodio parental app?
It is. Yes, that's it. And you can get to it from the website that I mentioned or also. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay,
well,
cool.
Thank you so much, Harrison, for taking the time with us, to inform our listeners about the product, the offerings. But again, this is one of those things where we were more interested, I don't say that in a negative way, more interested in the issue, right? Protecting students, working on their mental health, supporting them, instructing them. Like that's one of those things that I think we all agree is an important element we have to address. I'm very thankful Linewize is addressing it. So folks, make sure to check that out, linewize.com. That was on screen before. It'll be in our episode page with notes and things like that after the fact, but really appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Likewise, guys, that was great. And thanks so much for everything you're doing in the space to inform listeners about education technology, because there's a lot of neat things, even way outside of what we're doing that are really powerful in helping our students. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. All right, we'll wrap the episode here in just a second. And we're back. Thank you very much, Harrison, for taking the time with us. It was awesome, frankly, to hear about, if I open up their website, I'm looking around their website, it's like, okay, see some of the safety things, secure, but like the idea of the 3 buckets or whatever they're, if they've got more corporate speaky about that, but like prevention and enablement, great. Early detection and intervention, great. Education and engagement, also great. Like this is the life cycle. We're trying to prevent issues. We're trying to deal with issues. We're trying to educate to break the cycle around issues. And all of these things are about student safety and well-being. I don't know anybody who isn't behind that, right? I hope that the tools continue to serve those districts they're in, serve the students, protect them. That's great. We actually started talking a little bit off air. I wanted to note this, like Harrison mentioned that there's tools like opt-out tools and stuff for parents and for certain families. Like they're aware of the fact that this platform may not be for everyone, that they may need exceptions, stuff like that. So, it's cool to know, as I mentioned during the interview, I'm a little anti-surveillance, whatever, except for the case, anybody who's listened to the podcast knows that, but, except for the case of safety, I do believe, especially with minors, we need to be protecting them. There's legal implications, but morally, ethically, this is an absolute. We must protect our children. They cannot protect themselves. They're not capable of it in many cases. So it's a very good thing here. But that's good to know. Like if there's a family who had a concern, even in a district where Linewize is applied, speak up, reach out to your district. You can find accommodations, work through that. So
yeah.
It's a little bit of both and it serves everybody. But I appreciate Harrison taking the time, giving us the insight, having that fun conversation with us, like Josh had teed up at the beginning. We're going to dig into not only the tool, but like they're dealing with heavy subjects. This is not easy. This is not stuff that you just like, what's the art initiative? Like, it's like kids are hurting each other, hurting themselves, and Linewize is a part of preventing and intervening in that. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I appreciated about that kind of offline conversation we had as we were leaving in there is Harrison mentioning like being passionate about at the same time, like data's only being used for what it's supposed to be used for, and students and teachers and parents at any point can request stuff to be removed. And they're very open to that. So they're trying to do stuff the right way. They're not trying to be a data warehouse. They're not a freemium tool that's trying to sell your data. They're upfront about their costs, and they're trying to be careful about the data that they're tracking for the right uses. And in those cases, when we're talking on younger kids in the classroom, those types of situations, I'm totally a fan of it. When we're talking Amazon, tracking me a little bit to, for goodness sakes, sell me one more thing off their website, maybe a little less. It depends.
One more thing with things that I already have 3 of. It's like, Amazon.
My favorite is when they advertise things I already bought, like on their website. It's like, buy this again. I'm not going to buy it again. I own it already.
Yeah, see, you brought this toothbrush. Have you thought about these other 6 toothbrushes?
That look identical.
I'm good.
I don't know. I don't have that many friends. I don't know what you're thinking, Amazon. Sorry. I don't know what you want. Anyway.
Why do you need friends for toothbrushes? Are you giving toothbrushes out as gifts?
Listen, I don't know. Like, isn't that what... Listen, man, if you were down a toothbrush, okay? Let's talk a scenario, right? We're in the middle of the woods, and you've lost your toothbrush. As your best friend, I would
want to be the guy
to give you a toothbrush. Like, I got your back. I got you. I don't want those teeth to go bad while we're also dealing with animals in the middle.
What a man. What a man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I cut open a tauntaun for you, man. It's there.
Aw.
There you go.
That's some Star Wars love right there. Well, that's amazing. Folks, check it out. Linewize.com. It's worth taking a peek, read up on it, find out if your district's using something like this already, or if you need to get involved in raising funds for it, et cetera. Like it could be a task, but I think this is a very important thing. Hey, I've heard faculty, teachers who just come to me like, how can I control the iPads in my room? Like, that's great. Linewize has got that. So, I mean, you can even get to just that little piece of it, but to know that they can address those like safety and well-being issues, super, super awesome. Next episode, we are going to be talking to school AI. So it's been a little bit. We actually have taken a breather from the AI topic in general. We're going to come back to it.
Don't say those letters anymore in my in my vocabulary for the last couple of weeks.
Do you never mind. So my brain just
next episode school AI
thing.
Yep, got it.
Thank you.
Nailed it.
We appreciate you being here for this one. Tune in next week for that one about school AI. Until then, make sure you do follow us on Twitter, YouTube, on the socials at Hitech Podcast. Email us, inbox at hitechpod.us. This episode was actually brought to you by the Inbox. You know, it's not by the letter A or something, right? It's not Sesame Street, but this was brought to you by the Inbox because they reached out. Linewize reached out to us. Others have reached out in the past. So we really appreciate you coming to us, finding out if you're a good fit for our audience, stuff like that. Email us and we'll be in touch. Website is also hitechpod.us, where you can find an episode page for every single one of our episodes, which includes information not only about maybe who we're talking to, but the tool of the episode, so you can learn more about how to get started with it, what it's about, those kinds of things. Share those pages with folks. That's our resource we hope that you can use for other people to not only introduce them to the podcast, it's great, but like introduce them to a tool that may help them in their space. Thank you again for joining us for another week as we continue to learn what it looks like to harness technology in the classroom for safety and well-being purposes or just for educational purposes, whether that's online or in person. Until next time, we'll see you.
See ya.